First contact gone wrong. Admiral Elena Santos stood at the helm of the ESV Curiosity, Earth's most advanced deep space exploration vessel, as it glided through the darkness between stars. The ship's revolutionary quantum drive had carried them farther than any human expedition before, into a region of space that held promise of intelligent life. After 3 decades of interstellar exploration without encountering other civilizations, humanity had started to wonder if they were alone in their corner of the galaxy. That question was about to be answered, though not in the way anyone had hoped. Admiral, multiple contacts appearing at the edge of our sensor range. Lieutenant Chen reported from his station, his voice steady despite the tension evident in his posture. They're big, ma'am. Really big. Elena moved to the tactical display, her dark eyes narrowing, as she studied the readings. 7 massive vessels had emerged from what appeared to be some form of faster-than-light travel, their configurations unlike anything in Earth's database. The smallest was roughly the size of the Curiosity, while the largest dwarfed anything humanity had ever constructed in space. First contact protocol, Elena ordered, her voice carrying the weight of years of training for this exact moment. Open all standard frequencies. Broadcast the greeting package. The bridge crew worked with practiced efficiency, but before they could complete the transmission, the alien vessels accelerated toward them in perfect formation. Their intent became clear moments later as energy readings spiked across their hulls. "They're charging weapons," Chen announced, his fingers flying across his console. "Multiple targeting systems locked onto us." Elena's mind raced. The Curiosity was an exploration vessel, but given humanity's troubled history, no ship ventured into deep space without defensive capabilities. Still, they were dramatically outnumbered, and if these readings were accurate, potentially outgunned. "This is Admiral Elena Santos of the Earth space vessel Curiosity," she broadcast on all frequencies. "We are a peaceful exploration mission seeking diplomatic contact. Please respond." The response came in the form of a massive energy burst from the lead alien vessel, missing the Curiosity by mere kilometers. The message was clear: surrender or be destroyed. A text-only transmission followed, automatically translated by the ship's AI. "You have entered the sovereign space of the Arxer Dominion. Your species is unknown to us, therefore inferior. Submit to immediate boarding and classification, or be eliminated." Elena's jaw tightened. 20 years in Earth's Space Force had taught her that backing down to bullies only invited more aggression. But she also had a responsibility to her crew, and to humanity. This first contact could shape the relationship between Earth and its first confirmed alien civilization for generations to come. "All hands to battle stations," she ordered, her voice calm but firm. "But no one fires unless I give the word. Lieutenant Chen, begin recording everything. If this goes badly, Earth needs to know what happened here." The Arxer ships spread out in a standard envelopment pattern, clearly expecting no real resistance from what they assumed was a primitive vessel. They had no way of knowing that the Curiosity's seemingly smooth hull concealed technologies that humanity had developed through centuries of warfare and scientific advancement. Technologies that operated on principles the Arxer had never considered. "They're launching boarding craft," Chen reported. 6 of them, approaching from multiple vectors. Elena allowed herself a small smile. "Perfect. Deploy the bubbles." The Curiosity's hull shimmered as dozens of what appeared to be soap bubbles emerged, each about the size of a small car. The Arxer vessels paused their advance, likely confused by what their sensors were telling them about these strange objects. "Bubbles in position," Chen confirmed. "Quantum field stable. Execute pattern Sigma," Elena commanded. The bubbles suddenly accelerated, each one targeting the different boarding craft. When they made contact, there was no explosion, no dramatic flash of light. Instead, the boarding craft simply vanished, transported by the quantum fields into a pocket of space-time roughly half a light-year away. Silence fell over the bridge as the Arxer fleet's advance halted. Elena could almost imagine their confusion as they tried to understand what had just happened to their boarding parties. "Send another transmission," she ordered. Same frequencies. This time, her message was different. "This is Admiral Santos. As you can see, we are not as primitive as you assumed. We would still prefer peaceful contact, but if you force this confrontation, you will learn that humanity has developed ways of warfare that you cannot imagine. Choose carefully." The response was immediate and predictable. The Arxer fleet opened fire with their main weapons. Energy beams and plasma bolts streaked toward the Curiosity from multiple directions. "Initiate the dance," Alina commanded. The Curiosity's hull began to ripple like water, and as the alien weapons approached, portions of the ship simply weren't there when the attacks arrived, the hull flowing like liquid metal to create gaps where solid matter had been moments before. Not a single shot found its mark. Alina watched the tactical display, noting the energy readings from the alien vessels. They were powerful, yes, but also inefficient, burning through massive amounts of energy for relatively straightforward attacks. It was time to demonstrate why that was a problem. "Deploy the harvesters," she ordered. More bubbles emerged from the Curiosity, but these were different, darker, seeming to bend light around them. As they approached the Arxer vessels, they began to feed, drawing in the excess energy bleeding off from the alien ship's weapon systems and engines. Within moments, warning signals began flashing across the alien vessels as their power levels dropped precipitously. "They're charging up their main drives," Chen reported. "Looks like they're preparing to retreat." Alina nodded. "Let them go. But first, one last message." She keyed the transmitter. "The location of Earth will remain hidden from you, but we will remember this encounter. Humanity has no desire for conquest or dominion, but we will not submit to tyranny. Remember this day, and choose more wisely when we meet again." The Arxer fleet, their power systems struggling after the Harvester attack, disappeared back into faster-than-light travel, leaving the Curiosity alone in the void. Alina let out a long breath, then turned to her crew. "Send a priority message to Earth Command," she ordered. "The galaxy is inhabited, and not everyone out here is friendly, but they're about to learn that humanity is not to be underestimated." As the Curiosity's quantum drive spooled up for the return journey, Alina couldn't help but wonder what changes this encounter would bring to human civilization. One thing was certain: humanity's time of peaceful exploration was over. They would need to prepare for a galaxy that was both more wonderful and more dangerous than they had imagined. The silent response. 6 months after the Curiosity's encounter with the Arxer Dominion, Earth had changed. The knowledge that humanity was not alone in the galaxy, and that their first contacts were hostile, had unified Earth's nations in a way that centuries of diplomacy have failed to achieve. Dr. Maya Patel stood in the massive underground chamber that housed Project Prometheus, watching as engineers swarmed over what looked like a city-sized web of crystalline structures. The quantum computational matrix they were building would be the largest ever constructed, capable of modeling the entire known galaxy in real time. "The latest simulations are ready," her AI assistant, HFY, announced through her neural implant. Maya nodded, her augmented vision overlaying the results across her field of view. The data confirmed what they had suspected. The Arxer Dominion's technology, while impressive in terms of raw power, was fundamentally limited by their linear approach to physics and engineering. "They're still thinking in terms of brute force," she murmured, making notes with subtle eye movements. "More power, bigger ships, stronger weapons. They never made the leap to quantum manipulation or consciousness-driven technology." The revelation had come from analyzing the sensor data from the Curiosity's encounter. The Arxer ships had been blind to the quantum bubbles because they had no framework for understanding them. Their sensors, designed to detect energy and matter, couldn't perceive the subtle ways humanity had learned to bend reality itself. "Director Anderson is requesting an update on the Butterfly Protocol," Araya reminded her. Maya pulled up the relevant files with a thought. The Butterfly Protocol was humanity's response to the Arxer threat. Not a weapon, but a complete reimagining of how to approach conflict in space. The Arxer expected warfare to be conducted with massive ships and powerful energy weapons. Humanity would show them something entirely different. In labs and manufacturing facilities around the world, billions of microscopic machines were being created. Each one was smaller than a human cell, powered by quantum fluctuations in the fabric of space-time itself. Alone, they were insignificant. Together, they would change everything. Begin Phase 2, Maya authorized, sending the command through her neural link. Across Earth and throughout the solar system, hidden factories hummed to life. The microscopic machines began to multiply, each one carrying within it a fraction of humanity's accumulated knowledge. They would spread through space like dandelion seeds in the wind, creating an invisible network that could observe, communicate, and when necessary, act. First wave deployment complete. HFY reported several hours later. Quantum entanglement network stable. The butterflies are spreading according to projected patterns. Maya watched the holographic display as it showed the spread of humanity's silent guardians. Unlike traditional sensors or probes, these devices existed partially outside normal spacetime, making them virtually undetectable to conventional technology. They would be humanity's eyes and ears in the galaxy, and if necessary, their hands as well. But the butterfly protocol was only part of humanity's response. In orbital shipyards, a new kind of vessel was taking shape. Unlike the massive battleships of the Arxer, these ships were small, sleek, and nearly invisible to traditional sensors. They didn't carry powerful energy weapons or thick armor. Instead, they housed technology that could manipulate the fundamental forces of the universe itself. The first Phantom-class vessel will be ready for trials next week, Maya noted, reviewing the project updates. Have we solved the consciousness integration issues? The latest neural interface algorithms are showing a 99.7% synchronization rate, HFY confirmed. The ships will respond to their pilots' thoughts as naturally as their own bodies. The true power of humanity's technology lay not in brute force, but in the integration of human consciousness with quantum systems. While the Arxer built bigger engines and stronger weapons, humanity had learned to extend their minds into the fabric of reality itself. Maya's neural implant pinged with a priority alert. The butterfly network had detected something. A massive fleet of Arxer vessels moving through space, far larger than the group that had encountered the Curiosity. They were methodically searching system after system, clearly looking for Earth. They're persistent, Maya observed, studying the data. And they still haven't realized that they're looking for us in entirely the wrong way. The Arxer ships were scanning for traditional signs of civilization. Radio signals, energy emissions, artificial structures. They had no way of detecting the quantum network humanity had already begun to weave through space, or the fundamental changes humanity was making to the nature of reality itself in preparation for their next encounter. Should we inform them of their current proximity to our quantum observation network? Aria asked, a hint of what might have been amusement in her artificial voice. Maya shook her head, smiling slightly. Let them search. When the time comes for our next meeting, they'll understand that humanity's strength lies not in the size of our ships or the power of our weapons, but in our ability to imagine and create things they never thought possible. In the depths of space, invisible to the searching Arxer fleet, humanity's butterflies continued to spread, carrying with them the seeds of a revolution in how war and peace would be conducted among the stars. The galaxy was about to learn that there was more than one way to be powerful. The unconventional defense. The warning came through the quantum network on a quiet Tuesday morning, exactly 1 year after the Curiosity's encounter. A massive Arxer fleet had finally stumbled upon one of Earth's outer colony worlds, a small research outpost in the Ta-City system. Captain James Chen, formerly of the Curiosity and now commanding the Phantom-class vessel Dreamweaver, received the alert while conducting integration trials in the Kuiper Belt. The neural interface that connected him to his ship transmitted the news directly to his consciousness, along with all relevant tactical data. Well, he thought to his ship's eye, "Looks like we're about to test this system in combat sooner than expected." The AI, which he had named Echo, responded through their neural link. "All systems are operating at optimal efficiency. Quantum drives spooling up for transit." The Dreamweaver didn't look like a warship. It was roughly the size of a small yacht, its hull a strange, shifting pattern of blacks and silvers that seemed to flow like liquid metal. There were no visible weapons, no massive engines, nothing that would mark it as humanity's most advanced combat vessel. As the quantum drive engaged, James felt the familiar sensation of his consciousness expanding beyond the confines of his physical body. Through the neural interface, he became the ship, aware of every system, every quantum particle that made up its structure. The transition to quantum space was less like traveling, and more like thinking about being somewhere else. They emerged in the Tau Ceti system moments later, joining the other 11 Phantom-class vessels that made up Quantum Strike Group Alpha. Through the quantum network, James could sense the consciousness of each ship and its pilot, their minds linked in a way that would have been impossible just a year ago. The Arxer fleet was massive. Over 300 capital ships arranged in an attack formation that would have been impressive against a conventional force. Their sensors were sweeping the system, searching for the defenses they assumed would be protecting the human outpost. "They still haven't detected us," one of the other pilots thought through the network. "Their technology hasn't advanced at all since the Curiosity encounter." James acknowledged this with a pulse of agreement through the neural link. The Arxer were looking for ships, for energy signatures, for all the traditional signs of a military presence. They weren't equipped to detect vessels that existed partially in quantum space, or the billions of microscopic machines that had already infiltrated their fleet. "Begin Phase 1, he commanded, the thought rippling through the quantum network to both his fellow pilots and the butterfly swarms waiting throughout the system. The first sign that something was wrong came when the Arxer fleet's formation began to drift. Subtle at first, but growing more noticeable by the moment, ships began to move out of position. Their engines were firing correctly, but space itself seemed to be shifting around them, creating eddies and currents in the vacuum that shouldn't have been possible. Through the quantum network, James could see the confusion spreading through the Arxer fleet. Their sensors showed nothing wrong, no external force acting on their ships, yet they couldn't maintain their carefully planned formation. Phase 2, James thought, and the Phantom Strike Group began to move. The 12 human vessels slipped through quantum space like sharks through dark water, their consciousness-linked pilots guiding them with thoughts rather than physical controls. As they approached the Arxer fleet, they began to sing. The song wasn't sound. It was a complex manipulation of quantum fields that rippled through space-time itself. Where the fields intersected with normal space, reality began to get strange. Arxer weapon systems reported phantom targets that disappeared as soon as they were fired upon. Communications between ships became garbled, then ceased entirely as the quantum fields disrupted their ability to transmit signals through normal space. "Their flagship is preparing to launch fighters," Echo reported in James's mind. "Approximately 2,000 small craft." James acknowledged this with a thought, coordinating with the other Phantom vessels through the quantum network. As the Arxer fighters poured out of their launch bays, the human ships began their dance. Reality rippled around the Phantom vessels as they phased between normal space and quantum space, appearing and disappearing like ghosts. The Arxer fighters, trying to track targets that seemed to exist in multiple places simultaneously, began to fire wildly into space. That was when the butterflies struck. The microscopic machines that had infiltrated the Arxer ships weeks ago suddenly activated, extending quantum filaments that connected them into vast networks. These networks began to manipulate the fundamental forces that held matter together, not enough to cause destruction, but enough to cause chaos. Arxer fighter pilots found their controls responding incorrectly, as if the laws of physics themselves had been locally rewritten. Capital ships discovered that their weapons would no longer fire, the energy refusing to flow through circuits that had been subtly altered at the quantum level. "They're preparing to retreat," One of the other Phantom pilots reported through the network. Their flagship is charging its FTL drive. Not yet, James thought back. They need to understand what they're dealing with. Through the neural interface, he reached out to the quantum fields surrounding his ship, shaping them with his consciousness. The other Phantom pilots joined him, their minds working in perfect synchronization. Together, they began to weave a pattern in the fabric of space-time itself. The Arxer fleet watched in horror as reality seemed to fold in on itself around them. Space itself became fluid, forming shapes and patterns that their sensors couldn't comprehend. Their massive ships, pride of the Dominion, were now as helpless as leaves in a storm. Tables turned. High Commander Vextar of the Arxer Dominion stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Conquest, watching as his carefully planned attack dissolved into chaos. A year of searching, gathering the largest fleet in Dominion history, all to teach these upstart humans their place in the galaxy. Now his mighty armada was being systematically dismantled by an enemy he couldn't even see. High Commander, his science officer reported, mandibles clicking in distress, we're detecting quantum anomalies throughout the fleet. Our weapons are non-functional, shields are failing, and we've lost contact with 60% of our fighters. Vextar's scales shifted color in frustration. The humans weren't fighting like any species they'd encountered before. There were no massive energy weapons, no swarms of fighters, none of the traditional displays of military might that the Dominion understood. Instead, reality itself seemed to have turned against them. Launch the dreadnought weapons, he commanded. All of them. The dreadnought weapons were the Dominion's ultimate tools of war, massive antimatter bombs capable of destroying entire planets. They were meant as a last resort, a way to ensure that even in defeat, the Dominion would still achieve victory through devastation. But when the launch commands were sent, nothing happened. The weapons remained inert in their bays, their control systems responding with nonsensical data. Unknown to the Arxer, the butterfly machines had been particularly thorough in their infiltration of these systems, ensuring that such weapons of mass destruction would never be deployed. Through the quantum network, James Chen and his fellow Phantom pilots observed the Arxer's failed attempt to launch their doomsday weapons. The time had come for the final phase of humanity's response. Begin the revelation, James commanded through the neural link. The quantum fields around the Arxer fleet shifted again, but this time instead of causing chaos, they began to create order of a different kind. The microscopic machines that had infiltrated their ships began to transmit directly into their computer systems, bypassing all security measures through quantum entanglement. On every screen, in every computer system throughout the Arxer fleet, information began to appear. It was humanity's story, not just their military capabilities, but their art, their music, their philosophy. The quantum network transmitted experiences directly into their computer systems, showing them Earth's oceans and forests, its cities and laboratories, its people and their dreams. We could have destroyed your fleet at any time, James transmitted to the Arxer flagship, his message carried by quantum entanglement that couldn't be blocked or intercepted. We chose not to, just as we choose not to destroy you now. Your weapons of mass destruction have been neutralized, but your life support systems remain untouched. We want you to live, to learn, to understand. On the bridge of the Eternal Conquest, Vextar watched in stunned silence as images of Earth filled his screens. He saw humans working together with artificial intelligences, their minds linked through technology his scientists had claimed was impossible. He saw tiny machines that could reshape reality itself, and ships that traveled through dimensions his people had never imagined. Your civilization measures power by the size of your ships and the strength of your weapons, James continued. We learned long ago that true power lies in understanding the fundamental nature of reality itself. You see space as a battlefield to be conquered. We see it as a canvas where anything is possible. A new understanding. The aftermath of the Battle of Ta City, as it came to be known, changed the galaxy forever. The Arxer Dominion, faced with irrefutable proof that their understanding of technology and warfare was fundamentally limited, was forced to reevaluate their place in the cosmic order. 3 months after the battle, a different kind of meeting took place. The Dreamweaver hung in space near the edge of the Ta-CD system, its quantum fields calm and stable. Across from it floated a single Arxer vessel, smaller than their typical warships, carrying a delegation of their highest-ranking scientists and philosophers. Through the quantum network, Maya Patel observed the proceedings from her laboratory on Earth. The Arxer had requested this meeting, not for military negotiations, but to learn. Their entire civilization had been built on the premise that technological advancement was a linear progression of bigger, stronger, more powerful systems. Humanity had shown them that there were other paths. "Your ships?" the lead Arxer scientist asked, her translator converting her clicks and whistles into smooth English. "They are conscious." "In a way," Maya replied through the quantum link. "We learned that consciousness itself is a fundamental force of the universe, like gravity or electromagnetism. Our technology doesn't just use energy and matter. It uses awareness, understanding, intention." The Arxer delegation struggled with these concepts, their traditional scientific framework straining to incorporate ideas that seemed to blur the line between technology and philosophy. But they were trying to understand, and that was what mattered. "And these butterflies?" another scientist asked, referring to the quantum machines that had infiltrated their fleet. "They are everywhere. They're part of a new kind of infrastructure," Maya explained. "Not physical structures like space stations or transmission relays, but a quantum network that exists partially outside normal spacetime. They allow us to observe, communicate, and, when necessary, act anywhere in the galaxy instantly." The implications of this technology were staggering. The Arxer had spent centuries building their empire through force, constructing massive fleets to maintain control over their territory. Humanity had simply changed the nature of space itself, making traditional concepts of territory and control obsolete. As the technical discussions continued, James Chen stood on the bridge of the Dreamweaver, reflecting on how much had changed in just 1 year. Humanity had gone from fearing they were alone in the universe to demonstrating that they were perhaps the most advanced civilization in known space. But with that power had come wisdom. "We don't want to rule, to conquer, or to dominate," he told the Arxer delegation. "We want to explore, to learn, to grow. There are wonders in this universe that neither of our species has yet imagined. We could discover them together." The quantum network rippled with the thoughts and reactions of the other humans participating in the conference from across space. There was hope in those quantum pulses, hope that this moment could mark the beginning of a new era in galactic history. In the end, the Arxer delegation left with more questions than answers, but also with something they had never expected: an invitation. Humanity offered to share some of their quantum technology, not the military applications, but the basic science that would allow the Arxer to begin exploring this new understanding of reality. As Maya watched the Arxer ship depart, she reflected on the true victory they had achieved. They had defeated the Dominion not by destroying their ships or killing their people, but by showing them a different way of seeing the universe. The butterflies would remain, spreading through space, ensuring peace not through threat of force, but through understanding. "The galaxy's a much more interesting place than we imagined," she mused to Araya. "Indeed," the eye replied. "And we've only just begun to explore it." In the vast darkness between the stars, humanity's quantum network continued to grow, weaving a new kind of order through the cosmos. The age of traditional space warfare was over. A new era had begun, one where the boundaries between consciousness, technology, and reality itself would blur, creating possibilities that neither humans nor aliens had yet dreamed of. The Arxer had sought to teach humanity their place in the galaxy. Instead, they had learned that the galaxy itself was far stranger and more wonderful than they had ever imagined. And somewhere in the quantum fields that connected everything, billions of tiny butterflies continued their endless dance through space and time, carrying with them humanity's greatest gift to the universe: The power of imagination. Signals in the dark. Captain Elara Hayes stood at the observation deck of the UES Pathfinder, watching the endless sea of stars drift by as the ship cruised at standard speed through the uncharted regions of the Perseus Arm. The Pathfinder was humanity's most advanced deep space exploration vessel, equipped with technology that would have seemed like fantasy just 50 years ago. But out here, beyond the edges of mapped space, humanity was still just a curious child taking its first steps into a vast and ancient playground. "Captain, we're picking up something unusual," Lieutenant Commander Reza called from his station. His dark eyes were fixed on the sensor display, brows furrowed in concentration. It's not matching any known signature profiles." Hayes moved swiftly to the science station, leaning over Reza's shoulder. "Define unusual, Commander." "That's just it. I can't," Reza replied, frustration evident in his voice. "It's not emitting standard radiation patterns. It's not creating any discernible engine wake. It's like it's moving without actually interacting with the space around it." Chief Science Officer Dr. Imani Chen approached, her usual calm demeanor replaced with poorly concealed excitement. "May I, Commander?" Without waiting for a response, she slid into the seat beside Reza and began manipulating the sensor controls. "Whatever it is, it's big," she murmured. "About twice the size of the Pathfinder. And it's approximately 3.7 million kilometers from our position, traveling on what appears to be an intercept course." "Intercept?" Hayes straightened. "Are you suggesting it's aware of us?" "Unknown," Chen replied. "But its trajectory altered precisely 3 minutes after our long-range scans would have reached its position." Hayes tapped her comm badge. "Bridge to Lieutenant Park. Sound yellow alert. I want all systems at ready status." "Aye, Captain," came the crisp reply. Moments later, the ship's lighting shifted subtly, and the gentle hum of the ship's systems intensified as power was diverted to defensive systems. "Put it on screen," Hayes ordered. The main view screen flickered to life. At first, there was nothing, just the endless void of space dotted with distant stars. Then Chen zoomed in, and there it was, a shape darker than the space around it, seeming to bend light rather than reflect it. Its form was elongated, with no obvious propulsion systems or external features. It moved with a fluid grace that suggested an advanced propulsion system beyond current human understanding. "What the hell is that?" Executive Officer Commander Jackson voiced what everyone was thinking. "Not one of ours," Hayes replied, eyes fixed on the screen. "And not matching any known species in the database." The ship's AI, Araya, chimed in with its measured, gender-neutral voice. "Analysis complete. The object does not match any known configuration in our database. Its hull, if it can be called that, appears to absorb 99.97% of all electromagnetic radiation directed at it. It is generating no detectable heat signature. Mass readings are inconsistent and fluctuating." Hayes felt a chill run down her spine. In 15 years of deep space exploration, she'd encountered many strange phenomena, but nothing like this. "Open a channel," she decided. "All frequencies, standard first contact protocols." Communications Officer Lieutenant Rivera nodded, her fingers dancing across her console. "Channel open, broadcasting first contact package Alpha." The standard greeting, a carefully crafted message of peace containing basic mathematical sequences, visual representations of humans, and simple linguistic patterns, began transmitting toward the unknown vessel. Minutes passed in tense silence. The dark ship continued its approach, now clearly visible on the view screen without magnification. "No response, Captain," Rivera reported. "Keep broadcasting," Hayes ordered. "Dr. Chen, what's your assessment?" Chen hadn't taken her eyes off her readings. "It's impossible, Captain. The energy readings I'm getting suggest a power source orders of magnitude beyond our own, but there's no radiation, no exhaust, nothing we would expect from such a system." Suddenly, the ship's lights flickered. Every console on the bridge dimmed momentarily before returning to normal. "What was that?" Hayes demanded. "Some kind of energy pulse," Chen replied, frantically analyzing the data. "It passed through our shields as if they weren't there. It scanned us, Captain, right down to the molecular level." Before Hayes could respond, Rivera called out, "Captain, we're receiving a transmission. Audio only." "Let's hear it." The bridge speakers emitted a sound unlike anything Hayes had ever heard, a harmonic, multi-layered tone that seemed to shift and change even as they listened. Within seconds, ARIA began processing it. "Translation matrix engaging," ARIA announced. "Processing linguistic patterns. Calibrating." The tones gradually transformed into words, halting, strangely accented, but recognizable. "You, small, new, curious. We, observe, long watch. First, meeting." Hayes exchanged glances with her senior officers before responding. "This is Captain Elara Hayes of the United Earth ship Pathfinder. We are explorers from Earth. We come in peace and friendship." Another pause. Then, peace, concept understood. Friendship, unfamiliar. You, different from others. No fear. All others. Fear. "We respect the unknown," Hayes replied carefully, "but we seek understanding, not conflict." "Understanding. Yes. Come. See." The dark ship abruptly accelerated, shooting away from them at a speed that the sensors could barely track. "Captain, it's heading toward the Veil Nebula," Reza reported. "At its current speed, it will reach the edge in approximately 17 minutes. Hayes stood still for a moment, weighing her options. First contact protocols recommended caution, but this entity, whatever it was, had just invited them to follow. The opportunity was unprecedented. "Plot a pursuit course, maximum safe speed," she ordered. "Let's see where our new friend is taking us." As the Pathfinder's engines powered up, Hayes couldn't shake the feeling that they were stepping into something far larger than a simple first contact scenario. The ship had demonstrated technology beyond anything humanity had encountered before, and its communication suggested an intelligence both ancient and alien. The Pathfinder accelerated, following the dark trail of the mysterious vessel into the unknown reaches of the nebula. On the bridge, the crew worked with practiced efficiency, but Hayes noticed the underlying tension. They were trained explorers, the best Earth had to offer, but they were venturing into territory no human had ever experienced. "Captain," Chen called out after several minutes of pursuit, "I'm detecting unusual spatial distortions ahead. The fabric of space-time appears to be folding in on itself." On the view screen, the dark ship was approaching what looked like a ripple in the fabric of space, a shimmering, barely visible distortion that seemed to bend the light of distant stars. "Is it some kind of wormhole?" Hayes asked. "Negative," Chen replied. "It's more like a door, a deliberate thinning of the barrier between normal space and something else." The dark ship reached the distortion, and without slowing, passed through it. The ripple expanded briefly, then began to contract. "Captain, the anomaly is closing," Reza warned. "Estimated collapse in 30 seconds. Hayes made her decision in an instant. "Take us through, Lieutenant Park." Full impulse. The helmsman's hands moved across his console, and the Pathfinder surged forward. As they approached the ripple, the ship began to vibrate. Warning lights flashed across multiple stations. "Hull stress increasing," ARIA reported calmly. "Structural integrity at 87% and declining." "Maintain course," Hayes ordered, gripping the arms of her chair. The view screen showed the ripple growing larger as they approached, its edges pulsing with colors that didn't seem to belong in normal space. Then they hit it, and the world turned inside out. Every member of the crew felt it. A sensation of being stretched and compressed simultaneously, as if their very atoms were being examined and catalogued. The bridge lights failed completely for 3 seconds, leaving them in darkness illuminated only by the glow of emergency lighting strips along the floor. When the lights returned, the view on the screen had changed dramatically. The Pathfinder was floating in a vast space unlike anything they had seen before. Instead of the black void of normal space, they were surrounded by shifting curtains of luminescent energy in purples, blues, and colors Hayes couldn't even name. In the distance, massive structures that defied Euclidean geometry floated in complex arrangements. And there, directly ahead, waited the dark ship. "Where are we?" Jackson whispered, voicing the question on everyone's mind. "Not where," Chen answered, her voice filled with awe as she studied her readings. "When? According to my calculations, we've moved outside the normal flow of time. We're in some kind of pocket dimension." The comm system activated without prompting. The alien voice now seemed clearer, as if being in this space facilitated communication. "Now we see each other. Now we understand. You are not like the destroyers. You are curious ones." Hayes leaned forward. "Who are the destroyers?" "Those who came before. Those who burned worlds to cinders. Those who feared what they could not control." A chill ran through Hayes as she realized the implications. Another species. From our galaxy? Many species. Many times. The pattern repeats. Discovery. Fear. Destruction. We watch. We remember. We judge. "And what is your judgment of us?" Hayes asked, aware that she was speaking not just for herself or her crew, but potentially for all of humanity. There was a pause, longer than before. Then, uncertain. "You are young, bold, curious without caution. You may become destroyers. You may become something new. We will see." Before Hayes could respond, the dark ship began to emit pulses of energy that spread outward, creating patterns in the strange environment around them. The patterns coalesced into three-dimensional images, scenes of devastation on a cosmic scale. Planets burning, stars collapsing, entire systems reduced to debris fields. "The last destroyers," the voice explained. "They found us. They feared us. They tried to destroy us. They failed." The images shifted, showing the dark ship, or others like it, moving through space, observing, recording, occasionally intervening in ways Hayes couldn't comprehend. "We are the Watchers. We were created to observe, to remember, to prevent the patterns from repeating." Hayes took a deep breath. Created by whom? The first ones. Those who came before all. They saw the cycle beginning. They built us to watch when they were gone. The implications were staggering. Hayes exchanged glances with Chen, who looked both terrified and exhilarated by what they were learning. "Why show us this?" Hayes asked. "Why bring us here? You are different. You seek without taking. You explore without destroying. You may break the pattern, or you may not. Time will tell." The dark ship began to move again, heading toward what appeared to be a massive structure in the distance, a construction that seemed to be built from solid light and impossible geometries. "Come," the voice said. "There is more to see." Hayes nodded to her helmsman. "Follow them, Lieutenant, carefully." As the Pathfinder moved deeper into this realm beyond normal space, Hayes couldn't help but feel that they were at the threshold of a discovery that would change humanity forever. Whether that change would be for better or worse remained to be seen. What they found next would determine not just their own fate, but potentially the future of all humanity among the stars. Beyond understanding, the Pathfinder followed the dark vessel toward the impossible structure. As they drew closer, Hayes realized that what had appeared solid was actually in constant flux, a construct of energy and matter that shifted and flowed like a living thing. It was roughly spherical, but with extensions and protrusions that folded back on themselves in ways that hurt the eyes to follow. "Are you getting this, Dr. Chen?" Hayes asked, unable to tear her gaze from the view screen. "Attempting to, Captain," Chen replied, her voice tight with concentration. But our sensors weren't designed to interpret. Whatever this is, it's like trying to describe a tesseract with two-dimensional language. The dark ship slowed as it approached what appeared to be an opening in the structure, though opening was an inadequate term for the pulsing, shifting gateway that seemed to both invite and repel simultaneously. The archive, the alien voice announced. Memory of all that was, all that might be. It's a database, Commander Jackson asked, incredulous. More. Living memory, experience preserved, knowledge protected. As the Pathfinder approached the gateway, Hayes felt a strange sensation, a pressure at the back of her mind, as if something vast and patient was studying her thoughts. "Captain," Rivera called out, her voice shaking slightly. "I'm detecting unusual activity in the ship's computer core. Something is accessing our databases." "ARIA, status report," Hayes demanded. "I am experiencing an unprecedented information exchange," the AI responded. "An external intelligence is reviewing our historical, scientific, and cultural databases. I am unable to prevent the access, but I detect no malicious intent. It appears to be curious." "We learn you," the alien voice confirmed, "as you will learn us." The dark ship passed through the gateway, and the Pathfinder followed. Inside was a space that defied comprehension, a vast chamber that somehow seemed larger than the structure that contained it. Throughout this impossible space floated countless objects of various sizes and shapes, each glowing with its own inner light. "Memories," the voice explained. "Each holds the knowledge of a civilization. Some living, most gone." One of the objects, a small pyramidal crystal, floated toward the Pathfinder. As it approached, images began to form in the air around it, humanoid beings with iridescent skin building cities that merged seamlessly with the natural environment of their world. The Neartal, peaceful, created beauty, destroyed when their sun died, though we preserved their essence. The crystal retreated, and another object, this one an intricate metallic sphere, approached. It projected images of mechanical beings constructing vast networks between stars. The mechanids, intelligence born of silicon, created wonders of engineering, destroyed themselves in war with their creators. Object after object approached, each telling the silent story of a species that had risen, flourished, and ultimately perished, some by natural disaster, others by war, still others by their own hubris or simple evolutionary dead ends. "There must be thousands," Hayes whispered. "Millions," the voice corrected. "We have watched for eons. We have preserved what would otherwise be lost to time." "But why?" Hayes asked. "What purpose does it serve to maintain these memories if the species themselves are gone?" "Knowledge never truly dies. It waits. It returns in new forms, new minds. The patterns of life are recursive. What one species learns may save another, if the knowledge is preserved." A new object approached, a small, seemingly ordinary blue sphere that Hayes realized with a shock was a perfect miniature of Earth. "Your world, your species, young, volatile, destructive and creative in equal measure." Images appeared around the miniature Earth, the entirety of human history compressed into flashes of triumph and tragedy, wars and peace accords, environmental destruction and conservation efforts, genocide and acts of profound compassion. You balance on the edge of a blade. You could become destroyers. You could become preservers. Your path is not yet set. Hayes felt the weight of judgment in those words. "We're trying," she said simply. "We make mistakes. We learn from them. We try to do better." "Yes," the voice acknowledged. "This is why you are here, why you were chosen." At those words, Lieutenant Park called out in alarm. "Captain, 3 vessels just appeared at the edge of the structure. They're not like our guide." Captain, they're firing weapons." The view screen shifted to show 3 angular ships, their hulls gleaming with a metallic sheen that reflected the shifting colors of the environment. They were firing energy weapons of some kind at the outer edge of the archive. The Caridian Collective, the voice said, now tinged with something Hayes could only interpret as concern. Destroyers. They seek the knowledge here to dominate their sector. They have pursued us across many light years. They followed us? Hayes asked, alarmed. No. They have long sought entry. Your arrival created opportunity. A door opened can be passed through by many. The dark ship moved swiftly toward the intruders, but one of the Caridian vessels broke off and headed directly for the Pathfinder. Shields up, Hayes ordered. Evasive maneuvers. Shields at maximum, Lieutenant Park reported, but I don't know how effective they'll be in this environment. The Caridian ship fired, and the Pathfinder shuddered under the impact. Status displays flashed red across the bridge. Direct hit, Jackson reported. Shields down to 47%. Whatever they're using, it's cutting through our defenses like they're not even there. The dark ship engaged one of the other Caridian vessels, and the battle that ensued was like nothing Hayes had ever witnessed. The two ships didn't merely fire weapons at each other. They seemed to manipulate the very fabric of the space around them, creating distortions and shockwaves that rippled outward. Keep us away from those distortion effects, Hayes ordered her helmsman. We don't know what they'd do to our hull. The Pathfinder banked sharply, but the pursuing Caridian vessel matched their maneuver with ease. It fired again, and this time the impact sent crew members flying across the bridge. Shields at 12%. Jackson called out. One more hit like that, and we're done. Hayes' mind raced. Their weapons were likely useless against such advanced technology, and their shields were failing. They needed another solution. Fast. Dr. Chen, she called, you said this place exists outside normal spacetime. Could we use that? Chen looked up from her console, her eyes widening as she grasped Hayes' line of thinking. Maybe. If we could create a temporal displacement wave, it might disrupt their targeting systems long enough for us to escape. Do it, Hayes ordered. I'll need to reroute power from the warp core directly into the deflector array, Chen said, already working at her console. It's going to be rough. I can't control exactly how the wave will propagate in this environment. Just make it happen, Doctor. As Chen worked, Hayes addressed the entity controlling the dark ship. Can you get us back to normal space? The gateway remains, but the Caridians must not follow. They must not gain access to the knowledge here. We'll help you stop them, Hayes promised. But we can't fight in this environment. We're not equipped for it. The dark ship seemed to consider this as it continued its battle with the other Caridian vessels. One of the enemy ships was already showing signs of damage, its hull breached in multiple places. Ready, Captain, Chen announced. But I should warn you, this is going to strain our systems beyond their design tolerances. We might not get a second shot. Understood, Hayes replied grimly. Target the pursuing vessel and fire when ready. Chen activated the makeshift weapon. The Pathfinder's deflector dish glowed with accumulated energy, then released it in a wave that distorted everything it passed through. The effect on the pursuing Caridian ship was immediate and dramatic. It seemed to freeze in place, caught in a bubble of altered time. It worked, Chen exclaimed. They're experiencing time at a fraction of our rate, but the effect won't last long in this environment. Hayes turned her attention back to their mysterious ally. We need to leave now, while we have the chance. Will you come with us? There was a pause before the reply came. We cannot. We are bound to the archive. We must protect what remains. Then let us help, Hayes offered. There must be something we can do. Another pause, longer this time. There is a possibility. The archive contains defense systems. Ancient, dormant for eons. They require a key. What kind of key? A mind, a consciousness willing to interface directly, to become, temporarily, one with the archive. Hayes understood immediately what was being asked. You need one of us to connect with your systems. Yes, it would be intense, overwhelming for most biological minds. but possible. Hayes stood from her captain's chair. "I'll do it." "Captain." "No," Jackson protested. "We don't know what that kind of interface would do to a human brain." "We don't have time to debate this, Commander," Hayes replied firmly. "That time distortion won't hold forever, and we need to give our ally a fighting chance." Before Jackson could argue further, Hayes addressed the entity again. "What do I need to do?" "Come to the center. The archive will do the rest." Hayes turned to her first officer. "Commander Jackson, you have the con. If I'm not back in 10 minutes, or if that Caridian ship breaks free, take the Pathfinder and get back through the gateway." "Aye, Captain," Jackson replied reluctantly. Hayes made her way to the transporter room, accompanied by Dr. Chen, who insisted on monitoring her vital signs during the procedure. Minutes later, she materialized in what appeared to be the very heart of the archive. A chamber where streams of energy and data flowed in complex patterns through the air itself. The dark ship, or rather, a projection of it, appeared before her. "You are brave, Captain Hayes, or perhaps merely foolish, but we accept your assistance." "Just tell me what to do," Hayes replied. "Simply, open your mind. The archive will find you." Hayes took a deep breath and closed her eyes. For a moment, nothing happened. Then she felt it, a presence vast and ancient, touching her consciousness. It was like standing at the edge of an ocean, feeling the first gentle waves lapping at her feet, knowing that the depths held unimaginable power. Then the wave crashed over her. Information flooded her mind. Millennia of history, science, art, philosophy from thousands of civilizations. The rise and fall of empires that spanned galaxies, wars that lasted centuries. Peace accords that unified species once thought incompatible. Technologies that could reshape planets, create or destroy stars, bend the very fabric of reality. Through it all, Hayes struggled to maintain her sense of self, to remember why she was here, what needed to be done. With immense effort, she focused on the immediate problem: the Caridian invaders and the defense systems that needed activation. The archive responded to her focused intent. Knowledge of the defense systems crystallized in her mind, not just how to activate them, but how they were created, the principles behind their operation, their capabilities and limitations. Hayes understood it all in an instant, though she knew the human part of her brain could never retain more than a fraction of this knowledge once the connection was severed. With a thought, she activated the systems. Throughout the archive, ancient mechanisms stirred to life. Energy began to flow along pathways dormant for millions of years. The very structure of the archive began to shift, revealing weapons emplacements and shield generators previously hidden in the complex geometry of the place. Hayes felt a surge of satisfaction from the archive itself, a sense that she had done well, that her action was approved. Then, gently but firmly, she felt herself being guided back, the connection slowly withdrawing to prevent damage to her mind. As the flood of information receded, Hayes caught glimpses of something else. Images of Earth's potential futures. In one, humanity spread peacefully among the stars, joining a community of species in mutual understanding and cooperation. In another, human ships rained destruction on alien worlds, driven by fear and greed. Both possibilities existed, balanced on the edge of choices not yet made. Then she was alone in her mind once more, gasping for breath, as she fell to her knees on the crystalline floor of the chamber. "You have succeeded," the voice of the Watcher told her. "The defenses rise. The Caridians will be repelled." Outside, the archive's defense systems engaged the invaders with devastating effectiveness. Weapons that operated on principles beyond current human understanding tore through the Caridian ship's shields and armor. Within minutes, the battle was over, the Caridian vessels reduced to drifting debris. Hayes was transported back to the Pathfinder, where Dr. Chen and Commander Jackson helped her to the medical bay. Her vital signs were elevated but stable, and scans showed unusual but non-damaging neural activity. "What happened over there?" Jackson asked as Chen ran a medical tricorder over Hayes. I saw everything, Hayes replied, struggling to find words adequate to describe the experience. History, knowledge, possibilities. She looked up at her officers, and I understood what they are, what they're doing here. The Watchers, Chen asked. Hayes nodded. They're librarians, preservers of knowledge. They collect and protect the accumulated wisdom of extinct civilizations to prevent it from being lost forever. And they watch emerging species, like us, to determine whether we'll use that knowledge wisely or destructively. And what did they decide about us? Jackson asked. That the jury's still out, Hayes replied with a small smile. But they're hopeful. Hours later, with the Pathfinder systems repaired enough for safe travel, they prepared to return to normal space. The dark ship, the Watcher, guided them back to the gateway. As they approached, a final message came through. You have proven interesting, humans. You act from curiosity, not merely fear. This is uncommon. We will continue to observe your progress. Perhaps when you are ready, you will return. There is much here you could learn. We'd like that, Hayes replied. Thank you for trusting us. Trust is earned. You have begun to earn it. The path remains long. With those words, the gateway reopened, and the Pathfinder passed through, returning to the familiar stars of normal space. Behind them, the gateway closed, hiding the archive once more from the eyes of the galaxy. On the bridge, Hayes stared at the spot where the gateway had been, knowing that they had experienced something few species ever had, and survived to tell the tale. Set course for home, Lieutenant Park, she ordered quietly. We have quite a report to file. As the Pathfinder turned and accelerated into warp, Hayes couldn't help but wonder what other Watchers might be out there, observing humanity's first steps into the cosmic ocean. And she hoped that when judgment came, as it inevitably would, humanity would be found worthy of the stars. Because now she knew the truth. They were not alone in the universe, far from it. And the choices they made, the path they chose to follow, would determine whether humanity would join the community of starfaring civilizations or follow so many others into extinction. The responsibility was immense, but for the first time, Hayes felt certain that humanity was equal to the challenge. The adventure was only beginning.